Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So, Satsang Ji, today I'll be speaking in English and I'll be speaking about the Prakash Purab of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj. The reason I'll speak majority in English is for ease of understanding, and I'll just address the arrival of Maharaj. I won't go into much detail because of the time limit, but I'll be speaking about the Prakash Vihara itself. So I'll start with why Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj chose that specific family. In Gurbani, Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj's Bani, there's the Dohra, Kin Bediyan ki Kul Vikhe, Pragataya Nanak Rai. So here Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj is saying that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, our first Guru, chose this Bedi Kul. They chose this specific family for a reason. It wasn't random. The fact that they were going to come and take form, they had to be very specific with the family that they chose. So this specific family consists of their father, Baba Kaluji. We commonly know them as Baba Kaluji, but their full name was Kalyan Das. And the reason being was because of the amount of bhakti that their father had done in order to have them as their son in their house. So Baba Kalyan Das Ji, the father of Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, they had this strong desire, this itcha, that they want the light of God, the manifestation of God themselves, to come into their house as their child so that they could serve them with their very own hands. And this is a very big itcha, because when you have a child, what you then become is a sevadar, because your whole life revolves around doing seva, looking after that child. And this was the itcha that they had, that they want God themselves to come in the form of a child. And the itcha didn't just stem from them, but it came from their father. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's grandfather is the one who started this whole thought process of having the light of God manifest into their household. So naturally, Mata Tripta Ji, who's the mother of Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, also had that desire. They also wanted to serve. And because of that, they spent their whole lifetime doing a lot of bhakti, a lot of ardas. They were always begging and asking for Guru Sahib to come to their house. And this is why Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj specifically chose the Bedi Kul and these two as their parents. Then we have their sister, Bibi Nanaki Ji. And often when we think about Sikhi, and we think about who was the very first Sikh, we always turn to Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj because we could say, were the founder. But we often forget Bibi Nani Ji, their older sister. She was only 5 years old when she did this ardas. She had this desire as well, because in the pind, she would have a look around that she was the only one without a sibling. Everyone around her had a brother, and she did an ardas with such a pure heart. She said to Maharaj that, I also want a brother. But because her ardas was so pure, her intentions were so innocent because of her young age, Maharaj Aap aage into her house. Maharaj Aap manifested as Guru Nanak Dev Ji to be her brother. So when we speak of Sikhi and we ask the question that who's the very first Sikh, it was Bibi Nanaki Ji, because she's the one who recognized that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj is the light of God upon earth. So this was just a little bit about Maharaj's family and why they chose that specific family. We will go on to why they chose that specific land as well, but before that we do that, I want to cover why Maharaj came. What was the need for Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj to come in human form to the world? What was the need at that point? So when we read Gurbani, when we read by Gurdas Diyawara, we'll hear Suni Pukar Datar Prabh Guru Nanak Jagmahe Pathaya. We hear this Shabad, but we need to break it down as well. Because when we ask that question of why did Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj come, the answer is in the first pankti. The first word of that pankti, Suni Pukar. Suni is to listen, to hear something. A pukar is a cry. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj at that time heard a cry. And for someone to respond or to react upon a cry, it has to be a consistent, constant cry. It can't just be a one-off. If you take the example of a mother and a child, when the child is constantly crying, that's when the mother responds with urgency. The same thing with Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj and the people at that time. There was a lot of oppression going on. There was a lot of hypocrisy. There was a lot of people dressed in very religious robes, but not acting according to their dharma, to their religion. There was oppression in the form of how the Muslims were oppressing the Brahmins, the Hindus, telling them to convert. And so because of that, it was that cry of the people at that time that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj heard. That's what they say, Suni Pukar Data, that they heard it, and because of that, they came to this jug, to this earth. But then again, I don't want this to just be an episode of history, that all these many years ago, 555 years ago, Maharaj heard the cries of those who were oppressed and they came to save them. Where is Maharaj today? Where are we? Do we have that cry? Because Maharaj said that they came because Suni Pukar, they heard that cry, that's why they came here. And we know that Maharaj is still here today in the form of Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. So why did they come for us? Are we, Guru De Sikh, still crying out for our Guru? Because we are struggling in our own ways. It might not be oppression or hypocrisy, but we have our Panjajor. If not our Panjajor that are constantly stealing from us, we are separated from God themselves. So are we aware of the fact that we are separated? Are we till today crying out for Guru Nanak Dev Ji to come and save us? Because in this Var, it's Pauri 23, and it speaks about Guru Sahib's avatar, why they came into this world. And it's a really beautiful Pauri, but the last Pankti is Kalataran Guru Nanak Aaya. And we hear this often, but if we break it down, Kala, Kalajug, Taran is to save. So Tarna is to swim across, swimming across this worldly ocean. Kalataran Guru Nanak Aaya. We might ask, why did Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj come here? They came to save us, to help us swim across this worldly ocean in this time of Kaljug. The time when it's the hardest to swim across, they came to help us swim. So then the question falls back on us, that yes, Maharaj came in form 555 years ago, and he helped those people swim across, but are we willing to let Maharaj help us swim across today? Because Maharaj is still here for us. It's just dependent upon us. Are we open to having Maharaj help us swim across? So when we think about Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's arrival and why they came, it's really important to think about these questions. That are we open to the fact of being saved? Do we understand that we are separate from them? So if we speak of the arrival of Maharaj themselves, there's the pankti that says, Jot Roop Har Aap Guru Nanak Kahayo. That when Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj came in form, they were that Jot Roop. Jot Roop meaning that they were one with the Caldmore Vaheguru. There is no difference. But then on the same note, Maharaj in Gurbani says, Man tu Jot Sarupa hai, apna mool pachan. So here Guru Sahib is talking to us as individuals. They say, Man, hey mera man, they're talking to their own mind. That's us today as Guru De Sikh. When we sit down here, we have to speak to our own mind. We have to say, hey mere man, tu Jot Sarup hai. We're reminding ourselves that we are that Jot Sarup. The one that lived within Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj also lives within us. We have that Jot Sarup within us. And Maharaj goes on to say, Apna mool pachan. Mool is your root, where you've come from. And to pachan something is to recognize. So here Guru Sahib is saying that you are that Jot Sarup that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj talks about. All we have to do is recognize it. Because when we come here, we forget that we have that light within us. We separate from that light and we begin to identify with this body. And that's Maya. When we identify with this body, we're entrapped within Maya and we get separated from that Paramatma, that Akal Purakh Vaheguru. So when we reflect back on the Pankti Suni Pukar, what is that Pukar? What is that cry that we have till today? It's that cry that Maharaj, I'm in pain, I feel dukh, and all I want is sukh. I just want peace and happiness, anand, bliss. These are things that we want. The reason we're all here today is because we're looking for some kind of sukh. We're not just here to, do mathatek, do darshan. The reason we've come is because we have dukh, we have some sort of pain that we can't wrap our heads around. It doesn't have to be physical, it doesn't have to be mental, but there is a pain. We are in this Churasi Lakh June and we're so far away from Guru Sahib because we've gone so far from that recognition. If we just reflect back to Maharaj saying, Apna Mool Pachan, all they're telling us is to recognize who we truly are. When Guru Sahib tells us we're not this body, we're not this mind, we're not the thoughts that we think or the emotions that we feel. Because let's make it practical for a second. If your hand is hurting, you say, Mera haath dukhda hai. You don't say, I am hurting, because you know you're not your hand. The same way you're not your body. If you're not your body, you might start thinking, oh, but I have all these thoughts and they keep today for our Guru. Because we don't want to be separated any longer. We want to do that pachan, we want to understand who we truly are, that Jot Sarup, and eventually we want to connect back to that Almighty, to Akal Purakh Vaheguru. We want to merge back to them when they say Govind Leen Kayo, Jyo Pani Sang Pani. We're going to merge back just like water from the ocean, that droplet merges right back. That's exactly what we want in our final moments. So when we reflect on Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj's coming 555 years ago, we have to link it back to us today. And what does that mean for us? So just to wrap up, I'll speak about Maharaj's name itself. So the name Nanak, if we break it down, we have the Nanna, and the Nanna stands for a being, a push. And then we have Era and another Nanna because it's Nanak. That other Era Nanna means without. And the final Era Kanna is pain. So if we split it up into three and put it all back together, Nanak, what we're saying is that Nanak means that one ek Purush who's without pain. There's only one being who doesn't have any pain. Because as we've recognized, we all have that pain of separation. And not only that, we could have various other types of pains as well. So if we just look at the nature of Maharaj's name, because the Saki behind it is that their father was not willing to have them named Nanak because it was not a Hindu name or a Muslim name. And then Pandit Hardayalji explained that they're not a Hindu or a Muslim. They're going to start their own walk of life, which is Sikhi, which is what we are following today. So when we reflect on their name, just Maharaj's name itself has so much power. When we sit down and say, Tan Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj, we're saying, Tan ho tusi, you're so blessed because you're the only one without pain. Everybody else is full of pain. And when we recognize this, when we recognize that Maharaj is the one who is without pain and they came here to take away our own, then we understand how we're going to connect back. And if we just take Gurbani and read it and understand it, there's a beautiful pankti that says, Sajana desa videsiyare, sane hare dendi. Hey, you my Sajan, my friend. Desa videsh. So we are in one desh and we think Maharaj is in a whole different desh altogether, a whole different city, a country. So because we have that understanding of duality and separation, we then send out these messages, these that we then sit with this pain in our heart and we cry out to Maharaj that you're in a different land, I want you to come back to mine. Because we think we are separate. But if we just do a full circle back and come back to Man tu Jot Sarup hai, Apna Mool Pachan, then we'll understand that Guru Sahib is right here with us today. When we say the Vaheguru mantra, we split it up into four. Vaheguru. Va means amazing. He means here right now in this moment. Gu is darkness and Ru is light. So this is the mantra that Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj gave us, that when we sit down to contemplate